So we're here in Berlin at the 50 by 40 Summit by ProVeg International and Humane Society, and I'm here with Dr. Melanie Joy, who actually has been to Brazil a few years ago with us. And yeah, she's the co-founder of ProVeg International, the co-founder of SIVA, the Center for Effective Vegan Advocacy, and also the founder of Beyond Carnismo, and also an author of a few awesome books. So the first question is, what do you think are the most common mistakes vegan activists make when communicating and outreach?
Yeah, I mean, I think most activists actually do a great job, and it's really challenging to be a vegan in a dominant animal eating world. And so I want to just start out by saying it's easy for us to focus on our mistakes and think about all the things we could and should do differently. But when we look at the growth of the vegan movement, we can see that we're doing a lot of things right, and that we just have a big challenge. A couple of things or different ways of going about advocacy that could be helpful for vegans to consider are, one of them is to focus more on the process than on the content of a communication when communicating. So all communications have these two parts, content and process. The content is what we're talking about, and the process is how we're talking or how we're communicating. We often over-focus on the content, and we think we just need to get the ideas, get the words just right. But really the process, the how, matters more. And when we have a healthy process, we can communicate about just about anything without fighting and arguing. And when our process is not healthy, we'll argue no matter what we're talking about, probably. In a healthy process, our goal is to connect. It is simply to achieve mutual understanding. It's to understand each other's thoughts and feelings. Our goal is not to be right, which means to make the other wrong. Our goal is not to win like a debate, which means to make the other lose. It's simply to share the truth of our experience and to hear the truth of their experience, and to do so with respect and compassion. Another helpful approach for vegans that I recommend is to step out of this idea that either somebody is vegan and they're part of the solution, or they're not vegan and they're part of the problem. It's understandable that many vegans think this way, and it is problematic in some ways. About 99% of the world's population is not vegan, and yet many of those people do indeed support the idea of veganism. They support vegan values. So I encourage us to think of people as being vegan allies, and to use this term. A vegan ally is a person who supports veganism and vegans even though they're not fully vegan themselves. And so this might mean that they're a donor that supports vegan organizations, or they're a restaurant that starts Meatless Mondays, or they're the parent of a vegan who supports their child. So we invite vegan allies in to be a part of our movement. Social movements don't succeed just because of the core group of supporters, which is usually a small group. They succeed because they've attracted enough of the mainstream to be supporters of the message.
One other thing that I heard you speak about, and it seems very, very key, is the issue of activists not being able to maintain sustainable, as activists. So could you talk more about that? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, being vegan in a dominant animal eating culture, and especially if you're an activist, but sometimes just being vegan, can cause a lot of stress. It's just hard to live in a world where we're so aware of the problems, and our values in many ways are so invisible, and the work that we're doing is so invisible. Sustainability is the ability to sustain ourselves, to stay vegan and to stay active for the long haul, for the long term. The most important way to practice sustainability is to commit to becoming aware of and attending to our own needs. That's the number one thing we can do. When we commit to understanding, paying attention to, learning about, and supporting our own needs, we build what I call our psycho-emotional immune system. We keep ourselves resilient, we keep ourselves strong, we keep ourselves better able to withstand the stress of the dominant culture. And I have a whole chapter about this in my new book.
Yeah, so speaking of that, so the book is Beyond Beliefs, right? And could you tell a bit about what it says?
Yeah, it's a guide to improving relationships and communication among vegans, vegetarians, and meat eaters. And it's also for vegans relating to other vegans. So the book is on the basic principles of healthy relationships and effective communication that apply to all kinds of relationships and all kinds of interactions, friendships, interactions with colleagues, even relationships that don't involve veganism. But I've tailored it to address the specific issues, specific problems that can come when one person is vegan and the other person isn't, or one person is vegetarian and the other person isn't.
So, what do you think about there's been a lot of buzz about reductionism or reducitarianism, or reducing meat consumption, dairy and eggs consumption. What do you think about that approach?
Yeah, I think it's important not to ask for all or nothing. We know that most people don't just go vegan overnight, even if they really want to. For most people, this is a life transition that takes time and it takes practice. I think it's really important to encourage people to move along the continuum toward veganism, which is reduction. Personally, I don't use the term reducitarian or reducitarianism because that suggests an identity. And even talking about reduction, it makes it sound like reduction can be an end in and of itself, when we know that veganism is ultimately where we want people to end up. So I really encourage vegans to suggest that others be as vegan as possible. When we recommend or we ask people to try to be as vegan as possible, we are honoring the fact that they are the experts on their own their own reality. They know what's possible for them. So we encourage people to continually be reflecting on their food choices, which is a good thing. And we frame veganism as the end goal, not reduction. So I think this can be a really powerful way to advocate. And I have found personally that whenever I suggest that a person consider being as vegan as possible, they really respond very positively to this suggestion. And frankly, if everyone in the world were as vegan as possible, the world would become vegan pretty quickly.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Melanie, for this interview, and thanks for all the inspiration you provide us. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.